Thanksgiving holiday has come and passed. And while many students were home eating turkey with their families for the holiday, the Quinnipiac men's and women's ice hockey teams were not. They were all business. Grant Pechtold and the men's ice hockey team in Belfast, Ireland for the Friendship Four, and Cassandra Turner and the women's team right here in Hamden for the Nutmeg Classic. How did the teams do? We'll let you know. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Neutral Zone. My name is MJ Baird. Alongside me today is Victoria Rutigliano, men's ice hockey beat reporter. Victoria, happy to have you on today.
Happy to be here.
All right, so let's start with the men's team, as I mentioned, in Belfast, Northern Ireland for the Friendship Four. Just a quick recap of the weekend. As I said, Northern Ireland, SE Arena, home of the Belfast Giants. They're a team in the Elite Ice Hockey League overseas. On Friday, Quinnipiac and St. Lawrence play. They skate to a 0-0 tie. Chris Chul with 32 saves. Kyle Hayton picks up 37 of his own. Both teams are going to get 1 point in terms of ECAC implications. However, it is a tournament, so this does mean the game goes to a shootout. Nick Germain scores the lone goal for the Bobcats, and Quinnipiac advances to the finals. On Saturday to play against the University of Vermont, Sunday, to play University of Vermont, playing for the Belpot Trophy. That is on the line. UVM comes into the game 5-game unbeaten. Quinnipiac comes into the game 5-game unbeaten, but it's Vermont that takes the win. They win the tournament. Victoria, what did you see from this first weekend? And starting with the St. Lawrence game, that's a tie. What did you think from that game?
Well, I think both teams, it was a very evenly matched game. I think you got to give it to Kyle Hayton. He had 37 saves in the game. He played really, really well, helping to keep the puck out of the net. But I think the two biggest things about this was the lack of opportunities that they put forth. I think they had a 5-minute major power play Quinnipiac did in the third period, and they weren't able to score on that one. Chase Prisky hit the post twice. He whiffed on a shot another time, so they had some opportunities, and they just weren't finishing. They weren't finishing the puck, and that was detrimental to them. On the other side, I think St. Lawrence did a really good job neutralizing Tim Clifton in the offensive zone. He has the most amount of goals on the team, and he only had 2 shots against St. Lawrence. So they did a really good job keeping him off the puck, especially in the crease and in his favorite spots to shoot from.
So remember, it's Quinnipiac having to forfeit their home game against St. Lawrence in order to play over in Ireland. Quinnipiac has now lost once to SLU and tied once to SLU, being St. Lawrence. So St. Lawrence going to hold that tiebreaker come the end of ECAC play. That 1 point may make a difference in terms of seeding come the end of the year. But now let's move on to Sunday's game against Vermont. Losing to this Vermont team by a final score of 5-1, do you think that's concerning?
Well, it's the first time Quinnipiac's lost in a game 5-1 since the Frozen Four championship against North Dakota. So it was surprising, the score, but I think I'm not that worried about this because they didn't have Derek Smith. They didn't have Connor Clifton. He got thrown out halfway through the first period, and the defense really struggled after that. They struggled on their poke checks, moving around in the defensive zone, and that was why they were giving up so many goals. So I'm not too worried if they have healthy players. I know Connor Clifton can't play on Friday, but once they do have their defense back to where it was, I think they'll be better on the defensive end.
That's right, Connor Clifton, a 1-game suspension for contact to the head. But as I said before, Chris Chul, 32 saves on Friday, but then Andrew Shortridge gets the start on Sunday. I mean, Grant Pechtold really showing he's versatile with his goaltenders, not sure who he wants to go to. What do you think of these two splitting time in a tournament overseas?
Well, I think, first of all, the more important game was against St. Lawrence. It was an ECAC game. And I think Rand Pecknold really wanted to see what Shortridge could do in front of a giant crowd that was in Belfast, Northern Ireland. This game doesn't have as big of implications except for in the pairwise later down the road. So he wanted to see would Shortridge show up. And I don't know. I don't really think he did. He made 17 saves in the game, but I think his defense was more to blame for that game than really he was. I think Vermont had some really great goals, some really great shots, and that had a lot to do with the lack of defense for Quinnipiac. But I think we know who the starting goaltender is for Quinnipiac now, and it's going to be Chris Chul.
Chris Chul, that's right, starting 11 of Quinnipiac's games. Andrew Shortridge, only 4. So an 0-1-1 weekend for Quinnipiac. Let's take a look at how they fared in the USCHO.com poll that came out on Monday. Quinnipiac men, they're going to fall from 3rd place in the poll last week to 5th place this week. An ECAC tie and a non-conference loss for the Bobcats. Minnesota Duluth, though, coming in at number 1, still 47 of the first place votes. Denver coming in at number 2. They do pick up 3 second place votes, though. Ohio State going to move into the top 10. You see them down there at number 10. They were 13 last week. Vermont, you don't see them on there, but they moved up from number 20 to number 14. And then North Dakota, the defending champions, they fall from the number 5 spot to the number 9 spot. A loss and a tie against Michigan State this past week. So Victoria, we talked enough about last week. Let's look ahead now a little bit to this weekend. Quinnipiac has Union and RPI. RPI on Friday night, Union on Saturday. So last season, we'll start with Friday night's game against RPI. Last season, Quinnipiac took overtime in both meetings with RPI, a 2-2 tie in January, and Quinnipiac scored in overtime to win 5-4 in February. So what do you got for key players in this matchup?
Well, definitely from RPI, I'm seeing Riley Bourbonnais. He has been great for this team the past 4 years, and I think so far this season he has 13 points in 16 games, so he's a big player for the team. And from Quinnipiac's point, I think that Tim Clifton is due. He only had 2 shots on Friday, but then on Saturday night he had 9. So I think he's due for a goal. He's going to be huge against a team that's not that great defensively, doesn't have the best goaltending, and you're going to see him show up for the Bobcats.
All right, so as I said on Saturday, too, Quinnipiac beating Union 5-0 last season, and then the 2 tied in February of last year. So Victoria, Quinnipiac with a home-and-home weekend, 2 games this weekend. They'll get a chance to rebound from this past weekend in Ireland. Stay with us, though. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, Sierra Goodwill is going to join me. We're going to talk some women's ice hockey and how they fared this past weekend. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Coming up on Bobcat Breakdown.
Coming up on Bobcat Breakdown.
And welcome into Studio 125.
So what?
40
So what?
points. If you score 40 points in a basketball game, we all know you play Quinnipiac Intramurals. We all know you love to shoot the rock.
Well, if you think that's the most ridiculous thing you've ever heard, what I'm about to say, I guess, is going to be pretty ridiculous in your book. But I'm going to say, yes, there is a controversy.
Line, getting ready to punch the ball as it lands right in front of another Monument player.
It's 9:30 Eastern, and you know what that means. Sports Pause is on the air.
Flat ball played up the middle. Iman Whalen with a little cheat off the pipe.
Preseason just boils down to going after another national championship and not necessarily focusing on the one before.
MJ, it is time for our favorite part of the show. It's the top 5 plays of the week, brought to you by B&B Deli, home of the Q-Dog.
Let's talk about the first play you want to break down.
Yeah, let's break it down right away.
But the one name I'm going to throw out there is a freshman, Mika Maples.
Welcome back to the Neutral Zone, everybody. I'm still MJ Baird, but I'm joined now with Sierra Goodwill, a women's ice hockey beat reporter. Victoria, I'm sorry, Sierra, thank you for taking the time to come on.
No problem.
I just can't get enough of Victoria. She was just on the show
Right.
before. We're moving on to Sierra now and women's ice hockey. The Nutmeg Classic, every year around the Thanksgiving time. This year it's Quinnipiac hosting it, though. Quinnipiac actually won the Nutmeg Classic last season. So quick recap of that. Friday, Quinnipiac ties Merrimack 1-1. Same thing that we saw in the men. The game will go down as a tie for ECAC purposes. However, the teams do have to go to a shootout, and Quinnipiac falls in the shootout to Merrimack. No goals from Quinnipiac in the shootout at all. Perhaps not something the team works on very often because you're not going to see a shootout in ECAC play. And then Saturday, in the consolation game, Quinnipiac does defeat UConn 3-2 in that game. Merrimack, though, the eventual winner of the Nutmeg Classic. So let's start with that Merrimack game. A tie against that team, is that concerning for Quinnipiac?
Well, it's concerning in the fact that when you look at that they've only been a Division I program for 2 years, it sounds concerning, but they play in the Hockey East. It plays tough competition all the time. So while they're 2-7 in conference play, they're playing really, really tough teams. So it's not like they're a cakewalk. And they did snap Quinnipiac's 7-game winning streak in the Nutmeg Classic, so you have to hand that to them. But Quinnipiac recorded 44 shots. It's not like they were lacking in chances, MJ. They just weren't finishing. And that is something tough for the team. It can be a little frustrating, especially in media day, week in and week out. Head coach Cass Turner talks about harping on rebounding and finishing the puck and sticking with it till it reaches the net. So yeah, 44 shots, not finishing is a little concerning, but at least they're getting the opportunities. And then when you go into a shootout, it's a tough position for Sydney Rossman because, she only faces 11 shots during the game. So it's not like she's totally in it and like super on her toes. So then you go into a shootout. She's been having kind of an up and down year. You saw Abby Ives get the start one game when she struggled. So it's a tough position for Rossman to be in. So I don't think it's too concerning for the team as a whole. But one bright spot for Quinnipiac is Mackenzie Lancaster, 6 career goals in the last 9 games. So going forward, her play overall, I think will really boost Quinnipiac back onto the winning streak where they want to be.
Cass Turner definitely hoping for Kenzie Lancaster to keep up that production. Now let's move over to the consolation game. Only 2 goals allowed from Sydney Rossman, but Quinnipiac does get the win. Can you call this a turnaround game, or what do you want to call it?
Yes, Quinnipiac wins against UConn. They've won their last 6 games against UConn, but you do have to hand it to them. They're not used to playing in the consolation game, and their intensity was just as high as if it was the championship game, so that is a good sign. And again, they put up 45 shots, so the offensive production is not lacking. Obviously, they have huge goal scorers, and Sam Miskevich, T.T. Sanfrano, Emma Woods, now Kenzie Lancaster, so they have a lot of options to fire pucks on net. So they're creating a lot of chances. Eventually, shots are going to fall. Quinnipiac talks a lot about being a first period team. They want to start off strong, but then they found themselves kind of lacking in the second and third periods because so much focus was on the first period. So now they're trying to be an all period team, is what Sam Miskevich said in the media day, and she definitely showed that, scoring 18 seconds to the third period. So I think that consistency will definitely pay off.
So a 1-0-1 weekend from the women's ice hockey team. Again, the USCHO polls do come out on Monday, so let's see how the women fared. 4 weeks in a row at the same position, Sierra. Number 8 for Quinnipiac and Cassandra Turner. The top 6 this week actually do not change. In fact, only the 7 and the 9 teams are going to make a swap. That's Colgate and North Dakota. Colgate will go from 9 to number 7, not even playing this weekend, so you got to love moving up 2 spots when you don't even play a game. And then North Dakota will drop 2 spots. They split with Syracuse, so they will fall to the number 9 spot. St. Lawrence picks up 2 first-place votes. Also important to note, too, St. Lawrence has not lost a game yet. 15-0-1, their record. You can see sporting the number 3 spot in the USCHO.com polls. So, Sierra, let's just talk a little bit about these polls. The number 8 ranking, like I said, they've been there for 4 straight weeks. Do you think this is a fitting spot for them?
Yeah, I mean, I think they deserve to be there right now. The ECAC is so competitive this season. I mean, St. Lawrence, Colgate, Clarkson, Quinnipiac. Like, Quinnipiac, you don't really... Last year, they were atop the ECAC all year. It was them and Clarkson, kind of Harvard, but it's kind of anybody's conference right now. Really, really tough competition. So yes, I do think the 8th place ranking is kind of where they should be right now, and I think it's kind of less pressure for them. They're not atop the rankings. They're not atop the conference right now, so they have something to strive for. So I do think it's fitting.
All right, so looking ahead to this upcoming weekend, Quinnipiac women's ice hockey, like the men, play Union and RPI. Quinnipiac women will be on the road, though. So let's start with Friday night's game. That is against Union. Union did not win a game all last season. Quinnipiac took care of business. Rossman picks up 2 shutouts last season. Who are some key players you want to look to in this season's matchup against Union?
Well, I think Sydney Rossman, because I think for Quinnipiac, because I think this should be an easy enough game where she should be able to get back on track. And then for Union, Haley Shugart. It's their biggest offensive weapon. I know they don't have very much offensive production, just averaging about 1 goal a game, but she does have 5 goals on the season. But really, Quinnipiac should kind of wipe the ice with this team. It picked up its first win since 2014 in the beginning of the season and has only had 1 other since then. Sid Rossman can definitely look to get her consistency back. A nice, fairly easy weekend for her to do so, and a W will definitely give her some confidence.
All right, so that's Friday night. As you said, Shugart there, the freshman, perhaps a bright spot for Union, 7 points on the year. As we said, Union has struggled before. Let's look ahead to Saturday now, though. Quinnipiac playing RPI last season. Quinnipiac got the better hand, won 3 of the games and tied 1. Remember, 2 of those wins coming in ECAC postseason play. That was a sweep by the Bobcats here in Hamden. So another rematch against RPI. Who you got some key players for that game?
Well, for Quinnipiac, I mentioned her earlier, Mackenzie Lancaster. And then for RPI, Sabrina Rapasi. She has 7 goals, 11 points on the season. She's pretty much their go-to. Again, Quinnipiac should be able to handle this team. Mackenzie Lancaster, the reason why I think she's so great is because she had no expectations heading into the season. So now she's hitting her stride, and with Samo, Woods, and TT being locked down by many defenses and other teams, it kind of opens her up for opportunities to really be able to find the back of the net, and there's not a huge kind of expectation for her to do so. So it's really allowing her to strive. But Cass calls Kenzie's line the energy line, and I think you're definitely going to need her line to step up and really give the energy in this weekend, because it is 2 teams that Quinnipiac should pretty much roll over.
Lancaster, 6 goals in 9 games, as you said. Pretty impressive stat line. But that's all the time we have here today on the Neutral Zone. For more information, you can follow us on Twitter at Q30 Sports. And of course, for all things not only Quinnipiac men's and women's ice hockey, but all things Quinnipiac athletics, check out our website at www.q30television.com. I'd like to thank Victoria Rutigliano, who is here for men's hockey, Sierra Goodwill here for women's hockey, and all the crew behind the scenes. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.